Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1158 of our daily content grind. It is a Tuesday, that means it is time for another Here's 10. We are up to 2019 in our look at the best Transformer toys of every single year of the franchise. Interesting year. Siege is in full effect now. We've got Titans, we got Masterpiece, we've even got a little bit of Cyberverse leaking in. This is also a year where some of the, some would call best Transformers ever have been released. We had a lot to pick through on this one, but of course it's me making this list. I try to be objective, but of course I'm gonna have my favorites that are gonna work their way in. Needless to say, we're hitting interesting times when it comes to these lists. So, without further ado, let us take a look at the 10 best Transformer toys of the year 2019. And we're immediately going to start with something that is a personal favorite for me that some might not actually consider worthy of this list, and I completely understand why. That said, I'm going to talk about Reflector now. So, I like Reflector, like the original troop builder in Transformers who almost never gets a toy. He finally gets one. Now, it's in Siege, so just like some of the other characters like Shockwave and Soundwave, they just made up a weird spaceship mode for him. I think it works for what it is. It's a simple gunfighter. You know, it's not a thrilling vehicle, but it serves the purpose. The real purpose here is the fact that if you get 3 of them, all of his accessories combine into the necessary bits to actually make him into a camera mode. That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. You know, that works. And the fact that the guns and the weapons actually look correct even when they are off of the camera mode works really well too. I think it's an incredibly clever way of putting the gimmick in. Even going so far as to put that aperture as a removable piece. So you only need to have one lead reflector and then the others can just be like the sibling units. It's a really cool trick. It's a really cool way of using the accessories to work this toy. And yes, it satisfies a need that is long, long overdue. I could still go for something a little bit more show accurate and with a little bit better vehicle, but I think for everything this toy had to do, I think it's a commendable job. And yeah, even if it's just me who says it, I think it deserves to be one of the best. I like this figure a lot. Continuing on the trend of questionable choices, we are going to go with something that I felt really needed to exist in Titan's Return because the entire line felt like it was designed for this character and his partner in crime, who never made it out in time, but nice to see that Hasbro still carried on. Ape Face is another toy that is doing a lot. You have basically what was going on with the Titan's Return Voyager class toys, except to a character that actually makes sense for it, as the horror cons in G1 actually did have the triple changing headmaster gimmick to them. And they still do that really neat thing of I'm a beast and a vehicle, which gives you a lot more play variety across both modes. The only reason it's ranked this low, in spite of the fact that it's doing everything I loved in the Titan's Return gimmick, on top of the fact that it's bringing back a character long underused, is the fact that there are flaws to the toy, and Ape Face, admittedly, is not the greatest looking design. I think they changed it up and improved it dramatically from how the original like G1 version worked. It's still a little bit messy. And there is a flaw with the shield design, but beyond all of that, it is still doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's a toy that does a lot and gives you a lot of play value. There are flaws that you need to mind while you're messing with it, but beyond that, you got plenty you can do with this toy, and it makes it a lot of fun. Yeah, Ape Face is a good toy. You know, maybe some issues, and I understand if you wouldn't put it on the list, but again, my list, my opinion, you know, and despite flaws, I still think how much it does makes up for it and makes it a good toy. I will acknowledge when something is done really, really well, even to a design I may or may not entirely like. That goes in for a lot of the movie-based characters in studio series. But if you're accomplishing something that hasn't been done before at the retail level, I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to show respect for you. Case in point, the '07 movie Megatron. To this point, if you wanted this design at retail and you didn't want a big wing pack hanging off the back, your options were a Legends class figure. And like an old school Legends class, so only like a 3-inch tall figure. Like that was your option. That was the only one that managed to use the wings without creating a backpack. But this one does it too. The wings fold up a lot into the bulk of the legs, but as long as it gets it done, it makes the toy work. And it does lead to a pretty good take on the original movie Megatron design. I will admit, while I'm tired of the Bayverse movies, I'm tired of that live-action Bayverse aesthetic of just shrapnel glued to a skeleton, I do still have a fondness for the original cast and the original movie, so I will credit when credit's due. This is a decent figure. This is done very, very well. And remember, this is a Voyager. Is this a Voyager Leader? I think it's Voyager. Oh my god, I can't remember right now. I don't care. It's done really well for its size. That's the point. So, forgetting size for a moment, yes, it's a really good looking figure. Its sculpt does everything it needs to do to look like the movie. I even like the fact that he has the big chain weapon. Like even that is included. Okay, you've done enough. You have won me over. You have earned a place in this list. If you like the movie Megatron design, this is like the best version you're going to get. There's elements to this I like better than even the Masterpiece version. So when I'm the one complimenting a movie design, yeah, you should know that it came out pretty good. It might surprise you, but we're going to talk about a Cyberverse toy now, because every now and then, yes, they do a really, really nice, fun toy when it comes to those kid lines. And sometimes they manage to work gimmickry into a figure that is not only out of the way, but also very characterful. So, let's talk Ultimate Grimlock. For starters, yeah, I really, really like this redesign of Grimlock. The Evergreen Grimlock design is one of the few where I think that genuinely looks better than the original. I like the big shoulder missile pods. I like the heavier look, the different, like the broken up colors in the chest. This Grimlock works for me on many levels. I really, really like the Grimlock. All silver beast mode. He looks great in the T-Rex mode. He even keeps a decent level of articulation for that mode, so I'm happy with that. What gets me is the gimmickry, and the gimmickry is actually really fun. So you have this effect where when you stomp the figure down, these blades pop out of the tails on the sides of the legs and hit the ground, and they are sculpted to look like shockwaves, which is a really neat trick when you're getting this like seismic stomp, visual effect out of it. And then to also turn that into like a closing blade and still retain that like shockwave look to it in the beast mode to use the gimmick in a different way. That's really, really cool too. I love gimmicks that can be used two different ways. I love the ones that can be used in different modes, and I love them when they can stay out of the way. Being reduced to just a tail of Grimlock in both modes means that it doesn't interfere with what is still a fairly decent action figure for its size and price. So yeah, I like this toy way more than I expected to. I got him just because he was a cool looking Grimlock, but no, he stands up. And yes, even I can enjoy gimmicks when they are correctly done, and this one does them very correctly. Speaking of gimmicks, this is the Siege line we are talking about, and that line is known for one particular gimmick, starting off a gimmick that would last for the next 6 years, and that is the Weaponizer. And I'm sorry to all of the modulators, Junkions, and Armorizers who would follow. Sometimes the first ones just do it best. 6 Gun is a brilliant little figure. Aside from the fact I really like the look of the toy in general, I love the vehicle mode they came up with. Like this really cool like Cybertronian VTOL drone looking thing. It's a really neat alt mode for him to have. What really does help here is the fact that 6 Gun is literally made of 6 guns in his original G1 form. He's the inspiration behind the entire Weaponizer gimmick. Break him down into parts. All the parts tend to look like weapons that you can use on your larger figures. You know, even components that are kind of like iffy as far as like how well they can be used on others, like the pelvis piece, still come across as like a big heavy weapon implement. This works. This works on many, many levels, and it makes him very, very fun. Yes, he's all part former, but when that's supposed to be the point, I don't really mind it. And it does let him break up into a great set of accessories for your larger toys. It's a brilliant use of the gimmick. You know, it's a brilliant way of getting a character out who otherwise would go entirely neglected in modern toys, especially considering how long it had been at this point since Metroplex came out. So yeah, you had to wait a long time for that toy to be complete, but I think the wait was worth it. 6 gun is a really, really nice piece for many reasons. This is going to be very low on the list for a lot of you out there, but I'm sorry, this is where it deserves to go. If I'm looking at this objectively, then I have to keep a lot of things in mind. So, this is the point where we talk about Masterpiece Convoy 3.0. Yes, the figure is absolutely brilliant. It is a spot-on animation accurate Optimus Prime in size and proportions. The vehicle mode, looks like, like a little bit of the toy, but mostly the animation model again. It's got a ton of accessories, including a bunch that Optimus Prime never came with, like the fake parts for when Starscream was disguised as Optimus Prime. Comes with Spike and Sparkplug, who can actually ride inside. The repair portion inside the trailer, can form a display base for him to use the jetpack and all this. And it does come with one of the most interesting transformations of Optimus Prime ever. It is a phenomenal accomplishment of engineering. That said, it only places in the middle of the list because I think it's a little too complicated to easily enjoy. It really has to be your thing, that you really like involved transformations. Also, this thing is absurdly expensive. Remember, bang for your buck. And I think for the money that this thing was asking for, it does just enough to justify it. And even then, you'd have to really love the look of it in order to make this actually feel like it's worth the money. I will acknowledge it belongs on the list because the engineering is fantastic. It is an exceptionally good looking Optimus Prime in every aspect. It only gets knocked off because, yeah, a little too complicated, which means a little bit too pricey. $50 less, he'd be number 1. But it really does feel like I'm getting exactly what I expect out of that price, but it's just done in an exceptionally well way, which earns you a spot on the list, but admittedly not as high as it should be. Still a really good toy, just, there's a caveat there. This toy, on the other hand, feels expensive for its price in all the right ways because I think this is actually satisfying a very, very big thing, a very, very big need for some fans. Let's talk Siege Jetfire. Finally, a Jetfire toy that is the right size for Jetfire. He is the perfect toy to release as the very first Commander class figure because, yeah, he needs to be huge. This needs to be a giant character, but not Titan giant. It hits the perfect butter zone that Commander was designed to hit. Also, it's screen accurate. All the ones we've had so far have been trying to mimic the Valkyrie, the Macross figure in some way. This one actually hits the look of the cartoon, and I could not be happier about that as someone who grew up a big Skyfire fan. Throw in the extra parts so you can actually recreate the look of the toy a little bit if you prefer that. You've got a very, very well-rounded figure at a very, very giant size. Expensive for what it is. Commanders since then have done a lot more for that price point. This one did that price specifically because he had to be a giant. And a giant he is, and I feel a very worthwhile giant for his price. One more masterpiece for the list who is also very expensive, but I think does a little bit more for that price and obviously does not come in nearly as high as the Optimus Prime did. Kind of appropriate considering it's one of his rivals. Beast Wars Megatron is one of the largest Transformers ever produced and one of the most expensive, but this toy is doing a lot. The hallmark of Masterpiece Beasts is the treatment that they get in the alt mode, whether that is textured paint, specifically like textured spots to look pixelated like it really is the model from the show, or in Megatron's case, just a ridiculous amount of paint to get the look of the T-Rex correct to the series. It's an incredibly involved deco. And then you have other tricks, like the fact that a lot of the components and armor are removable, which not only replicates the look he had at the very beginning of the show before they scanned their beast modes, but also various looks at Megatron throughout the series, as sometimes you'd find him without his shoulder guards, without his back kibble, whatever the animators need in order to make a scene work. So you have all the means that you need to replicate just about any one of those scenes, whether that be ones that involve, his rifle from, the episode title I can't remember, but you know the episode, like everyone's feral episode, and they went on safari. And then, of course, the toothbrush, if you need the more fun accessories. He's one rubber duck short of being just about perfect, isn't he? So yeah, there might be some contention. While the engineering on this isn't as involved or I think as interesting or as impressive as Convoy's, this one hits the balance I'm looking for on price versus function. And I do think it does a better job overall of doing what it does at its price point. Very, very solid toy. Very big toy. Very good toy. This one's going to get in on a technicality because I will admit it's reusing existing parts, but not enough for me to say it's a retool or a remold. It's just borrowing some existing pieces. Everything else on it is brand new. And really, I need to be able to include this toy because it's not fair to do otherwise. Ectotron is a long-lived dream of 80s media fans, whether you're Transformers or Ghostbusters. Even if you were only into one of those things, something in life made you go, man, I wish they would do Ecto-1 as a Transformer. Lo and behold, they do it, and they do a beautiful job of it. I love little tricks that this toy has, like the fact that all the parts on the top of the vehicle transform into his proton pack. I love the fact that it comes with a proton pack at all as his primary weapon accessory. Like, the fact that it really feels like a Transformer as a Ghostbuster, I think is a really, really cool direction to take. It's not as simple as like, oh, well, it's Ratchet as the Ecto-1. It's not taking the existing character. It's coming up with something fresh and new, and it does it in an exceptionally cool and fun way. It's a great figure. It's an absolutely great figure with a lot of personality to it. Yes, it's based on the Onslaught mold, but it's only using a couple of the parts. Not enough for me to call it a retool of that figure. And no, just because it's reusing some transformation elements does not make it the same toy. That just means they reused engineering. We've done this before. Point being, it's a really fantastic toy. Really fantastic toy. Absolutely worth a spot on the list. Absolute blast. Absolute blast. Thrilled they did it. And we waited a long time for the crossover to happen. I think it was worth the wait. I hate to be predictable with lists like this, but it shouldn't shock anybody that a Titan is going to take the #1 spot because, frankly, they just do so much. And they check so many boxes for what I like for these lists. And frankly, this one I think better than most. We can now talk about Omega Supreme. What's impressive about this figure is I think it hits the right balance of a Titan between cost and size. He's shorter than the Titans we had before this figure. However, he feels denser. Metroplex, and as an extension, Fortress Maximus, feel very hollow for that huge size that they hit. Whereas this toy feels very dense. It feels like a very, very solid figure. You tack that on with all the features the original toy had as far as just like separating and transforming into the full rocket base, which is really, really cool. I love the upgrades. He's not as much of a part former because they figured out how to get his arms to all be one component that transforms into this rocket without having to come apart. That's a great addition. And then you throw in the part where we just added countdown to it. So this doubles as a Micromaster rocket base as well. Yeah, it's just doing so much, and it's a fun toy to transform. I really like messing with this figure. You know, and yeah, it's just everything. It's everything I wanted out of a modern Omega Supreme. Like, everything about it is just spot on, exactly what it should be. Also, we're beyond the age of the stickers, so unlike Trypticon, you don't have to spend a day and a half stickering him. That was another nice relief. But yeah, again, I hate to be predictable about these lists, but honestly, it's a fantastic toy. And if I'm going to name any toy the best of 2019, it's going to be a Titan. It's going to be Omega Supreme. I'm not biased just because we're both Omega. Just don't even suggest it. And that is going to be the list. So, next time we are entering the current decade, 2020. I'm going to start I'm going to start figuring out a few things of how we're going to approach the rest of this list now that we are at the very end of it. But trust me, it's going to get fun because we have so many toys to look over to figure out what the 10 best of every year was. So, join me for it. We won't have much longer to go. Thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.